Welcome to another episode of All Things Entrepreneur, where we shine a light on the blind side of entrepreneurship. It's your boy Errol J. Allen with
Jessica Myers.
How you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling amazing. How you doing?
Doing just as well.
I am so excited about the guest that we have today because especially now we were talking about the T83 calculator that used to help us compute and do a lot of things back then. Well, now they got AI. And it helps your brain compute and think through and process. And this is an AI expert, someone who's always been a leading emerger of technology and more so understanding business. So I'm excited to dive into your story and get more understanding of what got you here today. Mr. Alfredo Narez, how you feeling?
Feeling great. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
I know we said technologist, but you've always been somebody at the cusp. Can you just give us a little bit more information about where you are right now? And what we can expect before we dive in.
Okay. Right now, I've been focused on generative AI and in particular applying it to business. So helping people go from idea to product and funding and making sure that all of that's connected.
So one of the things meeting you, because we often hear about ChatGPT or OpenAI.
Yeah.
But when you said that you create your own GPTs, I'm like, wait. What's that? Can you define what that is and how you've been able to own in that space?
Right. That's actually changed a lot even in the last couple of months. So initially, you were able to create your own applications by utilizing ChatGPT in different ways that weren't necessarily part of the product. Later, they actually created similar to an app store for these GPTs. So you would create these applications, essentially give it a little bit of instruction, give it a little bit of information that's particular to what you're doing, and then let it go. So very similar to kind of joke, like a Jack in the Box, those old school where you used to wind them and then something would come out.
Yeah.
Just like that, pretty basic, not a lot behind it. But within the last several months, there are a lot of other players out there that are actually aggregating all of these languages and letting you create full experiences all through one interface. So it's really exciting.
How did you even think to get in that, especially with it being so new, so cutting edge? And some people are scared of it. They're like, don't you train that computer. It's going to take over.
We've seen iRobot.
Yeah, actually, my journey into generative AI was really unexpected. I was really focused on really heavy consulting. So I was doing enterprise consulting. I've had my own consultancy for a couple of decades already. Mm-hmm. And it just got to the point where I didn't want to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So last November 1st,
wow.
I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore, and I stopped. And it was November, so it wasn't like I was going to get more work or do any of that. So I spent a lot more time with my son. And one of those days we were talking, he had a tough time growing up in Georgia as the Mexican kid. So, we were talking, and I said, is there anything I can do to help? He's finally old enough to process what happened. And he said, yeah, I need you to help my friends. And I thought, okay, that's really an odd answer. But he started counting. Literally 5 of his friends had dropped out of high school. And they dropped out because they had to work. And they were doing landscaping, they were roofing, really hard labor. And, so he starts telling me that, I always tell him that since they're, digital natives, that they should be really focused on technology and using that to do work instead of always focusing on the manual stuff, kind of the trade work. And, it got me thinking, and a little bit later, it starts getting colder, and I'm driving him to school, and we see one of his friends literally digging a ditch in 30-degree weather. And he was just besides himself. He's like, you got to do something. You got to help. So
wow.
We dug into, I'm like, okay. And I started, going in and playing with ChatGPT initially. And I'm like, okay, let's put together a training. And we put together a training for young people and, started doing some stuff with his friends as well. And long story short, we ended up putting a book together, which is on Amazon, called The $1 Million Side Hustle.
Wow.
It's how to power your passion projects with AI. He and I wrote it together. It was basically a lot of these lessons that we started putting together in our journey. And, one day we had quite a bit. It was like 40 some odd pages as we were putting it together. And I said, we have enough to, almost have a book. And he immediately responded, "We can't do that." And I immediately responded, "Of course we can't." Really quickly, I was like, okay, that's a bad parent moment. So I sat back and I said, "I'm sure we can. I don't know how, but yeah, let's figure it out." So we ended up self-publishing on Amazon. We launched it late December, had no idea what to do. You're supposed to launch on a Tuesday, tell everybody about it 2 weeks ahead of time, get pre-orders, all that good stuff.
We just launched.
We launched it on a Saturday. We launched on a Saturday, never told anybody. And that Sunday night, I'm ordering a few of the books. I'm like, I should have a couple copies. And it's like, #1 bestseller, new, and like in a lot of different categories. We're like, oh, this is kind of cool. So then I started telling people,
like that book that's hot.
Yeah,
I wrote it.
Yeah. So it was just an interesting process, but that got me into that whole process, and the way that AI thinks is so contrary to the way I think and the way that I do business that it was a little intriguing. It was a challenge for me. So fast forward into February, I'm like, do I find a job? Do I do consulting again? I took enough of a break. So I decided drink my own Kool-Aid and use AI to power my passion project. I've spent all my free time typically teaching kids. I work with several groups like Goody and Latin American Association and a bunch of other people trying to help, entrepreneurs find their way. And I figured I'd, take it to the next level. So started, utilizing one of these applications that I built for myself. And, the rest has just been, that process. But it's been really exciting.
I'm like, how do you go? Because I feel like there's so many steps that are skipped. Like, how do you go from just figuring something out, writing a book, and then having your exit? What is that like? What was that train like?
For me, it was actually time to understand, like, a process without having to worry about, a business or a certain business model or investors or any of that other stuff that I, normally worried about. I kind of came up in the Silicon Valley times where, you had 6 months of runway and you had to hit certain numbers, and then maybe you'd get another year of runway. And if you didn't, so it was a really different, intense period. And finally, like, I didn't have to do any of that. I just was building something that I wanted to use and that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
And, that's what was exciting. And actually, today, 3 of my primary applications, the business coaches, are available for free. Compliments of Coca-Cola.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Hold on. We just grazed by that. Like, yeah, they're available for free because Coca-Cola cut the check.
That's right.
That's why it's like, you ain't just want to slide that. Nah, I see what happened.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So, yeah, I was helping the Latin American Association with an accelerator for women. Mm-hmm. And they were utilizing, some of my applications along with other. So I had created a completely manual training process over time. And then I slowly transitioned it to AI assisted. Now it's all on AI, but the results were pretty impressive for that community. And they started using it not only for the entrepreneurs, but they started using it for job training. Yeah, so one of the directors, when I was training them on how to use it, was the guy that runs a job training program. And later he said, do you mind if we keep using it for job training? Because it's helping people get jobs.
Wow.
I was like, wow. He's like, yeah, because they understand like how an idea, turns into a product, and how you think about the market, and how you put all those things together. So they're having these interviews, and they're talking to the owner about their product and the market and the model and all of that good
like,
stuff.
Wow,
and they're
whatever
just like,
you're doing is working.
Exactly.
Keep doing it.
And what was that tool called again, real quickly?
I mean, they're available on the PMFacademy.com. So I started with one application that I did a lot of school. I did a lot of training, and I also had a lot of experience in the startup world myself. And I spent like 5 years coaching through Goody and Google for Startups, Post Accelerator, all these startups that had gone through, and Andreessen and YC and all the top names. And as I'm coaching them, it was shocking to me how little they understood about product market fit. And the reason is that, you may or may not know, 90% of products fail within 10 years because of lack of product market fit. And most of the companies treat it like this kind of nirvana, like, oh, we're going to get product market fit. And we have product market fit, but there's an actual process, there's actual pillars, actual things that you need to understand and measure to see if you actually do have product market fit. So, something really critical. So I wanted to make sure that I was, helping entrepreneurs understand that, irrespective of that. But, so I took all of that and I put it into an application, and I called it Future Fernandez. My middle name is Fernandez, and I like future. So, there you go.
So let's take it back real quickly to the Coca-Cola deal. So let's because from the time you actually started the application to the time that Coca-Cola came and said, "Yo, we want to," how did that process go? How did they find you? What did that look like?
Yeah. So it was actually during these sessions at the Latin American Association. So during one of the sessions, one of the gentlemen who actually was helping put that program together, that was part of Coca-Cola, was at the sessions. Okay. And he was also at the ones they'd been doing previously. And it was, from what he saw, a big improvement in how, the different people at different ages and different levels were able to actually level up so quickly.
Yeah.
And, he got really excited, and they secretly tested some of my applications.
So you didn't know if John Doe was signing up, and you were like, who is John Doe? But okay, John Doe.
You never know who's in the room.
Right. And they said, how do we make this available to everyone?
Wow.
And I said, well, we make it available to everyone. Yeah. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really exciting because in the last 3 months, I was working on a lot of different applications, but again, I've always had this process that I used to go through, and I was finally able to put it all together in a physical training program that I transitioned, but I actually built applications that speak to each other during the process, right? So I have the 3 coaches, and those are the coaches that work with you. I built them to work with me, right? So I built Future Fernandez to work with me. I quickly started finding out product market fit, that a lot of people found him a little bit too stuffy. People were a little intimidated by Future.
He was too successful.
He was too successful.
I can never live up to that Future.
So then I built Nina. Nina Digital. She's a little bit softer. And in the Hispanic community, everybody has a godmother.
Yeah.
And everyone has problems with their business and their, family life and whatever. They go to their Nina. Yeah. So I built Nina to be, have all of the Future's, business mind, but
softer delivery.
Well, partially softer delivery, but the other is my wife's a mental health therapist. And, business is all about emotion.
Oh, yeah.
So I trained her to understand all of the negative challenges that businesses face. I've had pages and pages and pages of that. And I taught her to understand that if somebody is speaking about something, she can actually detect, for example, are you having challenge with runway, right? Are you having, challenges with this, with that? And actually, take that intelligence that she has, of business and bring those together. So that was actually that's the one that most people use.
Wow.
Is Nina.
Yeah.
And then my son came back and he said, "Wait, I started this whole thing.
I gotta get my name on the document."
Yeah, wait. I should be co-founder or something now." But so we worked on a version of Future, and his name is Junie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the website's Future Junie. So he is Nina, but he, as I've been told, he code switches.
Yeah.
Right. So he can speak to you like you're, ready to go to Stanford, or he can speak to you like you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that has all those 3 layers of sophistication.
Oh, wow.
So normally, a lot of entrepreneurs who do end up starting a business, most of them, they don't start with the end of wanting to sell, but eventually they work into it long enough to say, I do want to sell. You being in, startup space for so long and having experiences and being a part of multiple exits, what are some things that the average entrepreneur who does begin to start a business could kind of like prepare or kind of shift or target for to make sure that if they do decide to sell, they're in a better position to sell versus having never even had the thought come through?
Yes. So from day one, you have to understand and design your business for product market fit. Product market fit is simply, how well your product fits a need in the market, right? At the high level, there's a lot of nuance to that, right? And actually, you can train on it with any of the 3.
Yeah.
But it's really understanding how your idea is a potential business, what the model might be, why someone out there might care about it, and why yours is a better solution than what's out there already. And really following that path, you start actually speaking in the language of investors, right? Because that's what they're looking for, exactly that. Same as, funders. They're trying to understand, do you understand your market? Does it fit? Is there motivation? Like all of those things that you should be doing up front. You can have that ready and then present it in that way. So that's actually how I've built all my training, where you start with the idea, right? You take that, you evaluate it, you use that input, it actually goes into the next one, and that one helps you get all of that nuance. Like, what is the problem? What level of motivation is there? Is there a business model around it? What might be some of the challenges? Pops out that whole, insight, and then that goes into a PMF playbook that actually outlines all the different product market fit pillars, so that as you start building your product, as you start marketing, as you start looking for investments and building a pitch deck or whatever it is, you have that as your foundation, as your rock, you always go back to it.
Yeah.
And the PMF Academy literally walks you through all of this intensively.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Because just from being like a serial entrepreneur, and I know a lot of people that are in entrepreneurship, they're like, well, which idea do I go on first? How do I know if it's a product market fit? Because a lot of times you have doctors who have the solution, but remember, the child doesn't want to take their medicine.
Right.
They don't want to eat their vegetables.
Right.
So it's like, I may have everything you need, like financial security or how to get better, but most people are still like, I can't do my business because of money. And they think maybe money topics are boring, or, how do I even get into it? So how would your technology like help me go through my idea and prune that so I can get to success?
I mean, the framework is fairly standard, right? So when you're looking at your idea, the one thing you want to understand immediately is why that idea is something that you feel is a potential product that people are going to be really interested in adopting, right? And that's the biggest and most important thing throughout your entire journey, right? Because for you to be successful, someone has to stop doing what they're doing. They need to start using what you're asking them to use. They need to pay you. They need to use it more. They need to tell people about it. I mean, it's a lot, right? They can't just come buy it and leave. You'll go out of business, right? You usually don't, get enough margin to grow. You need those customers to come in and really love what you're doing, and you grow with them. So understanding that initially is absolutely critical, because that'll drive how you speak to them. That'll drive how you build your product to interact with them. That'll drive the stories you tell them and the investors and the market about why it's interesting or not.
Okay.
And so I do that. At the same time, I also have a layer that challenges all of that. Right? So, and I, typically do it myself, but one thing you may not know about, but one thing about generative AI, it wants you to be happy. Right? It loves it when you're happy.
It feels like it's a Chick-fil-A and Publix train. My pleasure.
It just wants you to be happy. And I want it to be right. Right? I want it to be
no hallucinations.
Precise. I want it to be. So I've actually built in layers of challenges where, as you're going through and you're answering a lot of stuff, not only does it challenge based on public knowledge, but it also challenges based on what you've been saying. So you may have come in and said, oh, I have this idea because of this and that and that and that. And then later, as you're going through, it'll actually go back and say, wait a minute, you said this.
Yeah.
This fits, this doesn't fit. And I see it a lot, for example, when you go through the process, you build all of this, like your persona, your brand, why you're doing this, your product. People build their websites, and it's totally different, right? So again, it's trained to actually go through those different steps and say, wait a minute, your messaging here's where it's different. Here's, how you might adjust that, or do you want to change it? Here's what it means. Here's the implications.
How do you keep it from hallucinating? And by hallucinating, like as far as going off or derailing from the mission?
Yeah, that's patent pending. No.
Okay.
No, it's pretty interesting. Part of it, you have to break how generative AI wants to work, right? You have to instruct it in a very, very meticulous way, so that you don't give it a chance to hallucinate.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And you put guardrails around, again, the answers where it's checking. Right, it's challenging some of these. It starts challenging itself.
So is that the trick? You make it challenge itself.
That's part of it. Yes.
Okay.
Right. The other is I built it so that my son can use it. Right. I built it so that his friends can use it.
Yeah.
So,
more importantly.
So one of the things is that you don't necessarily do the prompts yourself. You're speaking to it. and it's understanding what you're trying to get to, and then it's actually building that prompt itself, and asking itself, for you.
So it's like a genie, like you put into it your
Kinda
words
like
and what
it.
you want to do,
Kinda
and
like
it
it.
interprets for you,
A little bit.
and then spits out the result.
Yeah.
So outside of the AI and business stuff, who is Alfredo? What do you do outside of all this?
What do I do? Outside of AI, let's see. Actually, it's funny because I just like hanging out with family.
Yeah.
So I started doing mixed martial arts about 20 years ago.
You didn't just start then.
Exactly. I was part of the Shark Tank with Frank Shamrock and Chemo and a few others, and when it was still No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
And so I've been training since then, and now I train Krav Maga with my son.
Wow.
So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to stay active doing that.
You a UFC fan?
I was a super UFC fan, and then got tired of pay-per-view.
Respect it.
That part.
There's ways around it. I'm sure you can.
Right.
AI might be able to do something about that, where you ain't gotta always commit to that.
I know. So what are some top influential books that you feel has helped your mindset to even, because I mean, from somebody to go, we're talking about less than a year now. We're coming up on November 1st. And this is, been amazing, the stamina and the heights at which you've been able to go in an industry that, you had the consulting background, and how you were able to apply it to this new age and become a splash here.
Yeah. Those people that know me know I don't like to read. I had enough going through school.
Just read his book. It's okay.
Reading, except for my book. It's more of a hands-on.
Okay.
Instructional. It's instructional. It's teaching you step by step.
Yeah. The $1 million side hustle.
The $1 million side hustle. It's funny.
And that's interesting. It would be the side hustle.
It's the side
because
hustle.
I need that to be the main.
Well, that's right. Again, this training people is my side hustle now. It's the main hustle.
Yeah.
And but there's a lot of things that I would try to round myself out. I grew up loving the idea of products and how people use things and how things are built in general. But I think the big difference was how I grew up. My parents were migrant field workers. My dad was actually one of the first field workers when they used to go to Mexico and bring them over. So he actually was an employee of the state of California. Mm-hmm. And they'd go back every year, and then at some point, they kind of laid foundation, and they started creating this like a union where they would help other people kind of learn skills and help each other get jobs and all that good stuff. And my house was kind of always someone new there, families or friends, or always people coming in, and ad nauseum my mom would be like, how would you help that person? How would you help that person? And how would you help that person? And I just grew up looking at someone thinking, how to help that person, right? And as I got a little bit older and high school was coming up, they got really sick, and I went to live with my brother for a year, and he was fresh out of MBA, working at IBM, all that, and I had a whole other version of that. Anywhere we'd go, what do you think about this business? And how would you fix that business? And that, so, it was just like...
You had to be prepared at any moment.
Exactly.
Answer, let's go now.
Layer 2. And so it just, to me, that's really been the difference, because when I went to, undergrad at Stanford, and I wanted to do business, but there was no business back then. It was economics, and I was like, wait, that's not business. And then so the closest I got was industrial engineering.
How ironic. That's what I went to school for.
Yeah.
Before he fired.
Before I fired my college professor.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then later I went to University of Southern California. During the 2 years that they had a joint program with the Art Center of Design. So Art Center of Design's perennially 1 or 2 in the world in design.
Wow.
And I was there those 2 years. So it was like sent for me.
Yeah.
And this was like,
Yeah.
Again, like, look at how people use things. Why are they using them? So it was all the things that I wanted to do. And I've just kind of taken all these frameworks, taken all of these learnings and packaged them up. And now I can just ask Future.
Wow.
My favorite.
Because you were able to do all this did you have coding experience, or do you have to have coding experience?
You do not have to have coding experience. You have to be good at seeing patterns if you don't have coding experience. So that's something I'm just good at. I can see patterns in things and catch things that don't quite fit or maybe do fit. So
have you been looking at the pattern of these textiles behind me?
Yeah,
to see which one
the
is
staples
wrong.
that are
Yeah,
all
I
that
love
stuff,
it.
right?
I love it.
So so that's helped me a lot. But you don't have to have coding experience, and actually with AI, it's kind of cool if you don't, because a lot of it is starting to be natural language, and your own way of speaking and interpreting starts becoming that language.
Yeah.
And the thing is so important is that you have to try it, and you have to use your own words. And that's why I hate all these cheat sheets and all these other things, because AI has to be personal. If you use the same prompts that I use, I mean, it's kind of like when you see something, like we all, all
Have
three
a
of us can
different
see the same thing,
interpretation.
but we each are going to not only interpret it different, we're going to explain it differently.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to really test, like, if I say this, how does it respond? And then, be able to work with it. And, it doesn't have to be in a pristine, English professor language.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things, because again, I'm a big proponent, too much of a good thing. What's the con? Because there's possibility that something could go wrong or there's a catch to it. Mm-hmm. We have all this AI coming in, OpenSea, ChatGPT, all this stuff. What down the road, what would you see of too much of this? Like, we're eventually not going to be able to do simple things because we could just call AI to do it, or do you just see this is just going to be a perfectly harmonious world? And that's just
utopian society.
Yeah.
No. It's just going to be like, when we didn't have calculators, like when we didn't have the internet, like when we didn't have some of these things that are automating and letting us do, more creative things faster. I think that, in the next few years, if it keeps moving in the pace it is, a lot of the, factors that make us, for example, not want to do business, all that stuff that you have to deal with when you really just want to do your business,
like setting up paperwork or LLC
all of that.
Gotcha.
All of that stuff, right? Let AI deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Why should you HR, all of that stuff. And I think that's part of the challenge, is that we're not adopting it fast enough here. Like the group that I was telling you about, it's all out of Europe, right? Most of the people that are pushing it are not here. Our communities are still like, I'm going to pretend I don't use AI, and everybody else is using AI. So, that if we fall behind, the thing with AI is it's acceleration, right? It's making me go faster than I would normally go. And, as a community, we're already behind on the digital and, financial equity.
Yeah.
So the people that are using it are just going to get further ahead.
Yeah.
And, that's why I really want more people to learn it, more people to use it, and be responsible about it. Obviously, I've had people clearly copy paste and send it to me. Still has the quotes, still has the things. I'm just like,
it's like next time go in, take it out before you send it.
Right.
Be more careful so I don't see it. I don't want to know you're using it.
Yeah.
So obviously you have the PMF Academy, but again, AI for all relative purposes is still relatively new. What would you recommend as some open sources or things that people could just, get exposed or read up on just to slowly start immerse themselves in the world of AI?
Yeah. The great thing is there are a ton of free courses available online that teach you what it is.
I think Google has one, don't
And
they?
they have them, and they seem very basic. They're like, here's a picture of a dog, and
wag its tail.
But it actually learning how it was built, generative AI and how it was meant to work will help you a ton, because it was built to think a certain way, it was built to act a certain way. So if you know that, you're already ahead of the game, because she's like, okay, I know it wants to, essentially it's like autocorrect on steroids, right? So I know it's trying to kind of guess ahead of me. So I have to kind of lead it with things. And also it's the way that it's built. It was built by actually, can't think of the word right now, but it's basically like reverse engineering whatever you give it, right? So it's kind of degrading it to a point where
work backwards.
Yeah, where you're working backwards on it, so that when you tell it like dog, it'll actually give you something that it thinks it's a dog, right? And you might look at it and say, yeah, that's not a dog. Try again. But that's how it works, right? So for a lot of people, it just doesn't work. But actually, it's trying to guess again. It's trying to guess what you want.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always going to please you. It's always going to give you answers that are going to make you feel like, it's going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So you really have to, utilize it as like a, partner in crime.
I look at it as like How to Train a Dragon. Like if anybody has ever ridden a horse, they tell you, hit it hard. Sometimes I've had to be like, is that what we were doing something on one thing, and then it started talking about hallucinating or drifted off. And I was like, is that what we talked about? And it said, no, you're right. I'm sorry. I was like, hey, How to Train a Dragon, get in line. Mm-hmm. That's why I was like, the fact that you can build something to keep it focused. Because as much as I've been wanting to build, like I said, my zeitgeist and my 3-part formula for how to do a deal, and I've been wanting to put it in, I'm just like, will it stay focused or will it drift?
Right.
I need so that guardrail thing is pretty powerful of setting guardrails.
Yeah,
and parameters.
It's taken me all this time to figure out how to do that. And again, I spent that time because I wanted to have consistency. I wanted to have high value output as opposed to just stuff.
Yeah.
So I had to keep going through it, but it's really interesting. I mean, like I was mentioning about coding, like one word could change the entire output.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like
wow.
Literally, like I had one application where I added a word and all of the output was different.
Wow.
And it was seemingly insignificant.
Yeah.
It was, and tried to figure out what that word was, and I deleted it, and it went right baback to working. So,
I can't wait to play around with the technology and see the outputs, because I have so many ideas in my head. And like you said, because it's like I want it to pace me out, tell me what I need to focus on, because that's what he's big on. He's like, yeah, we got all these things, but what's the focus now? So if it helps me to peel out a focus and be like, this is what you should put your efforts on.
That's how it works.
I love it.
Yeah.
So what would you say, because you said you saw a whole bunch of startups that come through, and obviously some went through and some did it. And I know you probably go tell back to PMF, product market fit was one of the winning attributes, but what were some other traits that they've shown, and what were some of the companies you've seen that took off while you was...
did well?
Yeah.
Some of it is having... a strong team bond, because
Good culture.
startups are emotional. I mean, there's just always emotion flying. There's always, we don't have enough money. There's always, we don't have enough customers. Like, this is your area of work. This is my area of work. And the teams that I see, really doing well, they're working together. They're working through challenges, and they're really open about, what they're scared of, right? And one of the things that was really interesting that I tried to, institute was just kind of that question, like, what's keeping you up at night, and kind of open up to, well, here's what I'm doing and here's what I'm not doing. On the flip side, right, if you're not working that way, you can have a lot of founder drama, right? Because, again, there's just a lot of stress in the process to begin with. And, if you're not working together, you're going to drift really quickly. So that was always a big challenge.
Have you seen some companies that you was like, oh, this can, like, if they just do it right, it can go, sky's the limit, but then because of, founder drama, what have you, ended up not panning out?
A lot.
So and
sometimes it's because they see it too, right? They see it too, and they've kind of worked so hard to get there, and they start seeing it, and then, they start trying to transact in future value.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of lose track of where they are and where they need. You still got to work. You
Yeah.
still got to.
They say,
deliver.
well, $1 billion valuation,
Yeah,
but you still got this $100 bill you got to pay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're so sometimes that distorts reality for some of those founders. And then, I mean, you probably see this in some of your businesses. You might start with friends, right? And you didn't really think like, oh, this is going to be a startup and we're all going to work, the three of us, 33.3% of the effort, each of us. And the reality is that, you may be working on it 500%, you may be on it 10%, right? I might be, totally checked out. And then all of a sudden, you start getting customers, you start getting funding, and you're like, wait, I did all the work.
That slice of pie.
Yeah.
That's what the investment schedule, having people invest a schedule, like, let us hit some milestones first before you start thinking you get 100% of that 33%.
Right. Or, and that was, one of the things that I saw was that if you didn't have that taken care of early on, it's tough. I mean, I had one startup that they were like best friends and they were, cool about everything, and none of them had titles. Right. And then all of a sudden someone had to be the president. And then, then I'll be the CTO. And then, then I'll be the something else. And then all of a sudden the dynamic changed because
Resentment built up because
there was a president.
Yeah. They wanted to be the number one. Yep.
Right. So that whole dynamic is one of the most challenging. And it only gets tougher as you bring on more team members.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious because obviously you've seen a lot of people come and go in the startup space. If you saw a company that, they may have not had the right team players, but you could inject cash into it and bring the right team players and make it take off, have you done that with any of these startups that you've seen come and go?
I usually just invest my time.
Okay.
And try to help. That's really where I focus. I think it's important for founders to take that initial idea and grow it and build the right team around that to make it move forward. It's tough to bring somebody in, and that's actually a lot like private equity, right?
As I was going to say,
right?
Like building to sell. And
Yeah. So that's it's a good opportunity because, once you kind of understand what all these challenges are and being able to do that. The other thing I've been thinking of is like a venture studio where you start bringing some of those in-house and have the talent around them to support them, but not necessarily, change their team out.
Yeah.
Right. So just bring in more support. Mm-hmm. Again, try to let AI or, somebody else take the extraneous work off of them.
Because AI don't got emotions. At least not for now.
That part.
Not yet.
So then what's next on the horizon? What do you got working, coming up, cooking?
What's the future? No pun intended.
Future Fernandez.
Yeah. No, so I'm starting to work on a project to, create more of an on-demand accelerator and have the ability to, go through that process and get that help. And working with a bunch of nonprofits to try to put that together so that it's readily available. This isn't going to be a venture-backed company. It's I'm not going down that path. I want as many people to get their hands on it, as many people to learn. And when you look at the numbers in our communities, like we've got to get more of our youth and more of our adults,
unafraid
and using technology and being able to take, maybe they're not going to build their own business, but use it to have a better job interview, use it to, skill up and do other things. Right?
We all got a cell phone. We all use a computer. Why not? Yeah, I get it. What do you think? Because I know, especially with probably as you go up in age, people are more set in their ways. Yeah. What do you think is going to help break down that barrier for people to be more open to entering the AI?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that the ease of use, which is why I've tried to make these as easy as possible, will do that. I've had a lot of I've put it in front of a lot of older people. My dad's 93 and he used it. And
wow!
And he actually created images of him and my son and. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You need to get a commercial going with him because if he can use it, then why not you?
Yeah, I did a post about it. He's like, because I wrote my book, and he was really excited, really proud. And he's like, I can't read it because it's in English. And so I wrote a whole nother version, which no one bought except myself, in Spanish. And I sent it to him, and he read the whole book.
Wow.
And he was like, I read the book, but I don't have a computer. Like, how do I do this? So I handed him my phone, and I was like, what? Talk to it, just like you learned. And, about half an hour later, he's had these images, and, it was him and my son. Like, he took one of the pictures that I had made, and he kind of made this. He wanted to make it into a coloring book. So he made several versions of it. But he didn't like.
Of course he's going to tell you that.
That ChatGPT or Dolly kept putting a beard on him.
Ha!
He couldn't get it to stop putting a beard.
Yeah.
He's like
one word.
He's the clean shaven kind of guy, and he's like, I don't have a beard. Yeah. Why does it keep giving me a beard?
And you couldn't get over that.
He couldn't get over that.
Oh wow!
I was like, you literally just used AI to create a coloring book.
Yeah.
Right. And you're worried about the beard.
Hey, remember, I had my dad download ChatGPT and use it for the first time a couple of weeks ago. And you know what the first question he asked, or what we had to ask? Who is Jessica Myers? And it literally said real estate. It went down my real estate career. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he was so surprised that it on his phone. So it wasn't even like it was on my account. It was all on his phone. And he typed it in and he was like, wow. ChatGPT knows who you are.
Bringing a new meaning to the term Google me.
ChatGPT me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my sister is she's been a lifelong educator. She's an administrator at a school in South Central LA. And obviously AI is a bad word for a lot of the educators. And so I kept telling her that she should at least use it. Right? Use it, try it. Very resistant. And then I showed her Nina, and I said, look, I built Nina for people like you, right? That just don't, you don't want all this stuff, spat back at you, and it just talk to her. Yeah. So it's funny, one day she came back so excited. We were out there on vacation to see my dad and stuff, and they're all in Los Angeles. But she was super excited because she started with a snarky comment about, education and, the challenges. And, again, Nina's trained on emotional intelligence. She flipped the script. I'm like, oh, I see. So you're worried about this and worried about that. Have you thought of this, that, and the other? And she was just like, what? Like, it knew, like, the core standards. It knew all of this stuff.
Oh, wow. Sounds like we need to use this ASAP.
She was like, what? So now she's a huge fan.
Yes. I love it. I love it. So how can people find out more about, the PMF Academy? Or where do you want to direct people to?
The website. Everything's on the website.
Is thepmf.com?
PMFacademy.com. If you don't put you'll end up in like Kazakhstan or something. So
you don't want to go on PMF. Make sure you go to the PMF Academy. Borat be up on the screen like it's a boring.
I always get people like, I went to your site, but it's kind of
not what I thought. Not what I expected there.
Like, okay, so the PMFacademy.com. And what about your socials?
The PMFacademy.com. I'm on LinkedIn. My name, Alfredo Narez.
Okay.
I might start on the X here and there.
Yeah.
But don't have time for that.
Well, I was like, hey, he's a hard one to get to. If anything, we wanted to expose you to what investors, like you said, for decades, you've been consulting with businesses, startups, and by startups, those in the Silicon Valley that have sold, had exits. Yep. You're talking about 8+ figures, and you've helped to coach them along to greatness as well as being a part of them yourself. Yep. So hopefully you picked up a lot of gems and a lot of nuggets from this episode. What about you?
I'm about to go back and look through it again.
I know. I can't wait to
check out
go talk to Nina.
The PMFacademy.com, because I had PMF Academy, not the.
So it's free.
Yes.
Thank you, Coca-Cola.
Yes, they cut the check. They cut the check. Make sure we cut more checks so they get more knowledge and more information.
That's right.
As always, be sure to like and subscribe to this episode. Send this episode to someone that needs to grow, that needs to get their $1 million side hustle going. I know I'll be looking in and tuning in. So thank you so much for joining us. As always, you got it. Let's get it. Let's go.